Hi, I'm Tom Loucks for Making Connections on Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. In this segment, I have Grand Rapids here, and we're going to listen to Arnie Nystrom. He is the Grand Rapids chairman, and his guest today is David Grace. He's the municipal judge for Grand Rapids as well as Saratoga, and we're going to learn a lot about what he does and how that court system works. So I want to thank you for joining me on this segment of Making Connections. So Arnie, let's talk about some of the stuff that you gave me here. It is the month of February getting towards the end, and we're going to talk about dog licensing.
Yeah, that's one thing I wanted to bring up this time around is dog licensings are due. Any dog in the town of Grand Rapids needs to be licensed by March 31st. The fees that the town collects are either $5 or $10 depending on the dog. Most of that goes to the county. We retain very little bit, but we don't want our citizens, or we wish that they wouldn't need to get cited to be able to pay for their dog licenses. So what we do is we mail postcards out, and this year we've sent out 392 postcards just 2 weeks ago. That gives them basically 6 more weeks to pay for their licensing. It also gives them a chance, if the dog passed away, for example, or they no longer have that dog, that they can get it off of our records before it gets to a point where we have to issue citations. And last year we actually handed out 34 citations to people that just refused to come in and pay for their dog license. Now, once it gets into the court system, there's court fees, and then there's the forfeiture. And I don't remember right offhand. Do you know, Judge, what the forfeiture is? Isn't it about $70?
Or more. It's I think it's in excess of $100 with the licensing.
Okay, so to get a dog license, do they have to prove a rabies shot? Or
yeah, exactly.
Like
they have to bring in the most recent rabies shot. It has to be within, I believe it's 3-year period of time. If they come in without it, we will try to take the time to call the responding veterinary. We can't always say that we got the time to do that, so we ask the people to bring it in and do it. Someday this stuff will all be electronic and it'll be a whole lot easier, but still we're dealing with multiple databases, so it's pretty tough for everybody to keep everything integrated.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that myself with my dog. Just went to the vet yesterday, and I think I need a license here again.
Yes, you do.
Good. That's good information. You also have another thing on the list: mobile food vendors.
Yeah, we last year we had a couple of vendors come in and wanted to set up some mobile food, whether they wanted to be truly mobile, where they were going to be at a commercial business, or if they were going to be established in a certain area. The whole process for us to do that takes approximately 6 weeks. So when you think about it, that's 6 weeks, and you got maybe a 9-week summer. The time flies back so far. So we've tasked our planning commission to develop a mobile food licensing process where it doesn't need to go through the planning commission or the town board to get approval. We simply set it up so that there's an inspection. If it is a trailer type thing, it may need the inspection from our fire chief, or it may need a building inspector for one reason or another to look at it. But once we get that, we run background checks on the people, and then we can have our staff issue the permit and get them into doing what they want to do, is make some good egg rolls and whatever for sale to Grand Rapids.
Yeah. So when you're mentioning mobile food court, or mobile vendors, you said, where can they go? Is it in their residence, or is it like a parade? I guess I was just curious.
Yeah, they need to have permission for wherever they're going to be. For example, we had J Square Catering do it at the 2600 or whatever it is, 48th Street South area set up there. They have the permission from the owner. We have several of them that'll go out on 8th Street right next to the Quick Trip. That property owned there, and the owner is very receptive to having people come in and sell, whether it's the blooming onions or the strawberries or the raspberries or whatever it is, but he's receptive to come on out there. And the whole process, so even for Harold Altenberg for years has set up there, but it's always tedious to do that. So we felt it's time that we get within the guidelines and that are legally allowed for us to do it, and make it a whole lot easier on vendors to.
Okay, so is that is it done yet, or is it in process?
It is almost done. I think we should have it at our next legislative meeting in its final format, which will be in a couple weeks, and then we hope to have it only a week or two after that. So we should be ready within a month.
So you'll be ready for the summer?
Yeah, we definitely will be.
All right, sounds great. And then it leads right into new business permits.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that start home businesses. Sometimes you can start a little business from home. Maybe it's maybe you're telecommuting into some company to do some stuff. And then it expands a little bit. Now you get more work, and now you've said, maybe I can take this out and expand on it. Well, we do allow home occupation businesses, but if there's going to be traffic involved, then it becomes a little more of a business permit. So we've again tasked the Planning Commission to develop some rules and some regulations of how we can promptly get these going so that we can get the people in business, make sure the inspections are done. Primarily, that's the biggest thing, is to have the safety of the fire department inspection. So, and that's coming along too. We're just about done with that. So those are two things we tasked them with in late summer. We said we want this ready for next spring. And they're right on target.
All right. Well, that makes it a lot easier for the resident or a new entrepreneur to get moving instead of waiting 6 to 9 weeks.
Yeah.
You can maybe get it done in a week or two instead.
That's what we're hoping to do.
And less staff time as well, probably.
Greatly less time.
So it's a save money for both residents and
in the process, if they have to have a public hearing on this, then the people have to pay for those fees. And, simply to get a permit now is going to cost you $250 to $300. Well, sometimes it takes a long time to make that back on burgers or egg rolls.
Yeah, quite a bit. So, all right. Well, thank you for that information. And up next, we're going to get to learn more about David Grace. Thanks for coming, David.
Thank you.
All right. Well, you're the municipal judge over for Grand Rapids as well as Saratoga. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and then tell me a little bit about when court is and what you do, and you probably have a bunch of topics here, and I'll let you go first.
Well, the municipal court was reenacted by Grand Rapids back in 2004, and at that time it was created as what's called a joint municipal court. So the court is actually the Grand Rapids Saratoga Municipal Court. And I say reenacted because there had been a municipal court in Grand Rapids. We were trying to figure out exactly when. We know who the judge was. His name was Harold Thallaker. However, we don't know exactly when that court was in effect. It had been dormant, though, for a period of time. And in April 2004 is when the court was placed back into service. It's a municipal court. That being the case, the jurisdiction that this court has is over municipal citations. And the distinction is a municipal citation is not a crime. A municipal citation is what's called a forfeiture offense. So if you want to call it punishment, or the remedy that I can impose is strictly a financial remedy. I don't have any authority to impose any type of jail sentence whatsoever. If that occurs, that type of offense has to go to the circuit court. Now, that has advantages in that there is a court access system in Wisconsin that's computerized, and I think at this point a lot of people are familiar with that. That system does not include the municipal courts. So the concern that people have that they are cited for whatever offense it is that occurs either in Grand Rapids or in Saratoga, that somehow it's going to become a public knowledge. It at least is not available by computer access. It's public to the extent that the records are public, with the exception of juvenile records, but it's not readily available to access by computer. So that has its advantages in that people make mistakes rather than going through the circuit court and with the possibility of it being considered a crime, and with then the ignominy, I suppose, and then the embarrassment of, if ever being questioned, have you ever been convicted of a crime? If it's in circuit court, that can be the case. In municipal court, the answer is no. So that is an advantage. Our primary jurisdiction, the primary matters that come into our court, at least for Grand Rapids, is primarily traffic. There are other matters such as trespassing and some criminal damage to property, some other offenses that are handled at the municipal level rather than going into circuit court. And the one advantage of that is it's a less the procedure is much more, let's say, friendly. It's an opportunity for somebody to come into a court and not have to go through the formality that occurs with the circuit court. Plus, I have the opportunity to be a little more personal with people than the judges have in circuit court. Their caseloads are just way too demanding for them to have much of a personal discussion with people that come up in front of them. So it's one advantage that hopefully when it's not traffic and it's some of these other offenses, that people can consider the error of their judgment and avoid the real problems, and hopefully make that their only time that they have to appear before a judge, whether it be a municipal judge or a circuit court judge.
I guess I'm just curious, you say this is for your traffic offenses, speeding, going through a red light, so that's where
any
that
type of
comes.
traffic offense
Okay.
that isn't criminal. I mean, there are criminal traffic offenses, and those all have to go to circuit court.
Okay.
So there's times when I have traffic citations in my court, and that same person also has traffic citations in circuit court, because the offense that they're charged with has some forfeiture offenses, but at the same time they also have some criminal traffic offenses.
Yeah, for example, OWIs, the first offense, our court system can handle that, but any repeat second, third, and fourth, that automatically goes to the
Well, it
circuit
does.
court.
So the first offense, you would, they would see you. And
Yeah, Wisconsin, that's an issue in Wisconsin. You oftentimes hear that they want to criminalize first-time drunk driving charge, and I personally don't agree with that, because I think that our system works a lot better than people realize, and criminalizing that offense in particular has significant ramifications, and the best example is to see how the system in Illinois has developed because of that. And quite honestly, it's a travesty in terms of how those matters are handled in Illinois. Here in Wisconsin, by not criminalizing that first offense, it gives us a little better opportunity to actually deal with people and avoid some of the problems. So it's a big issue, and recidivism is an issue, unfortunately, but at least the way the system is set up, there are things that they have to do, and I think that most people are pretty responsive. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that their first offense is not going to be their last one, and I mean, we're dealing with addiction issues, which courts really can't real effectively deal with.
just one other question I have before you go on to the next piece. Do you have to go to court, or can they just pay a fine?
No, a person, well, I shouldn't say that. There are certain offenses where there's what's called mandatory appearances, but that's somewhat limited in terms of the mandatory appearances. People don't have to. They can, if they wish, simply sign the ticket. Actually, the new one, I don't think they sign anymore. Well, I think they still do. And send in a check and pay it, all right? Or if they don't appear at all, they get defaulted and a penalty is imposed, and then we go through the procedure of informing them that they've been found in default and informing them of what the penalty is that's imposed. So the answer is, in some cases, they're required to appear, but not always.
Okay.
One thing I try to do and encourage our police force to do is that if juveniles get charged with juvenile offenses, that their parents are informed that they are to appear with their juvenile offender, if you want to call them.
Okay. Well, that gets right into that question, any youth issues that you may see. I didn't know you would put somebody under 18. You do?
Well, first of all, if you have a driver's license,
True.
you can have a citation issued, and that a juvenile is not recognized as a juvenile when it comes to traffic citations.
Oh.
So they're treated as any adult when it comes to the offenses that they incur as a juvenile in traffic matters. The other matters, juveniles, it's usually substance abuse issues. All right, so whether it be tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana, I don't think that I actually see other drugs, and I have a suspicion those type of offenses are much more serious, and so those are probably going through the circuit court or through that system. But in terms of the use of those substances, those type of matters come before me. And what we have put together is that in any of those events, the juvenile is given the opportunity to participate in what's called a diversion program. And the diversion program includes their participation in some sort of a learning program. We have some computer programs which apparently are working quite well, because I asked the kids after they go through them whether they've learned something. And interestingly, nearly every one of them says that they've learned something, whether it be tobacco or alcohol or drugs. And I'm quite pleased, and I've seen some interesting results of the kids participating. It's a computer program. Most kids today, it's no big deal for them to do that. It takes a while. They have to devote some period of time to going through the program, but from what I see coming back into my court after they go through that program, I'm quite pleased with the responses I'm hearing. And generally I tell them my primary concern is they open their eyes to the reality of matters rather than learn about those matters without appropriate background information.
Alrighty. On the list, we'll talk about, I think, youth, allowing youth to drink. Does that come with parties with parents? Is that kind of what this question here goes with, or anything that you have to, I guess, Arnie could...
Well, we have multiple things. We have the quote-unquote beer parties where they all find the dead-end street that has nobody living on, and they'll have their party there, and number of them, when they get found, they'll get citated. They need to come in. And then you have the ones where the adults will allow the children to have a bunch of friends over and serve alcohol. And there were some recent court changes or statute changes that make those fines pretty significant. I think then we went from $5,000 to $1,000 for first offense.
I know that I suggested that there be an increase in the penalties. Fortunately, we don't see a lot of those, but there's normally one or two at least a year where a situation has gotten out of hand. and a report has come in because usually it's noise or some evidence that there's something going on, and so law enforcement shows up, and I don't know how often the parents are involved. On occasion, unfortunately, the parents have allowed some inappropriate activities to occur at their homes, but I think many of them, it's done in the absence of parental guidance, let's say.
Yeah, that sounds pretty common for years. So, let's talk about when people need to come in and pay. Is that during hours, or is that during when they go to court? When do they pay this fine?
Well, there aren't a lot of people, comparatively, the number of people who show up at any court date. Oh, and you had asked, court is the first Wednesday evening of each month, all right, and at 5 o'clock, and excuse me, 5:30. I'm sorry, 5:30, and we also set aside one day a month for trials if necessary. That I don't think that we have that number of trials that necessitates use of all of those days, but
No.
the initial appearance dates, we do have those 12 dates, and those occur. Matters can be, forfeitures can be paid that night or during the business hours. If they wish to mail them in, of course, that can be done at their own convenience. The other thing is that we rather readily give the opportunity to people to they have an absolute right of 60 days to make payment on a forfeiture that's imposed. And if necessary, that they need more time to do that, I entertain requests for payment plans. And actually, if somebody wishes to come in to establish that they're not in a position to make payments because of their financial situation, that can be considered.
Okay.
It's called a good cause hearing. Interestingly, there's not a lot of those that are requested.
Okay. But possible.
Yes, it is. It's available.
Okay. Now let's just talk about something. If someone was speeding, say, 100 miles an hour through Grand Rapids, is that go to your court or not? I'm just curious.
Well,
I suppose it could.
yes.
Likely.
If they
Okay.
issue just the speeding ticket.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't know that I've seen 100, but
Okay.
I have seen some. And an unfortunate thing is, those excessive speeds have become a little more common in the last couple of years,
Yes, they
which
have.
is a little
Wow.
troubling. And I have my views on why that's occurring. The two things that I think are disconcerting about traffic, and a third one we can throw in. Number one would be that the people are speeding excessively. All right, so 1 to 10, you can understand people doing that. Between 10, 15 miles an hour, that's stretching things in a residential area. But the problem is we're seeing them in excess of that. And the other thing that's troubling is the number of people who are not, driving because their license has been suspended, and driving without insurance and without registration. And most people, I don't think truly understand how dangerous it is to operate a motor vehicle without insurance. They think primarily in terms of them being responsible for something, but what they don't realize is, and on occasion I run into that, where somebody is injured themselves, the other person doesn't have insurance, they don't have insurance, therefore there's nothing available for compensation. And a lot of people don't think that through and don't realize that operating a motor vehicle in today's world on the highway without insurance it's really unacceptable.
And you can't any longer right in Wisconsin, is it?
Well,
Not supposed to.
You're not supposed
Yeah,
to. Years ago you could, I remember.
well,
Yeah.
and you can still obtain a waiver, I believe,
Oh.
but you have to be able to establish your financial responsibility. So people that have substantial assets,
Oh.
I think, could do that. I don't know that anybody does. I'd be surprised if they would, but theoretically, that's available.
Yeah, back in the 80s, I got hit by a Wisconsin driver. They did back then. I don't think they didn't have to have insurance, and it was their fault, but I didn't get a dime.
That's exactly right. Your insurance ended up having to take over and pay for it.
Yeah, that was like 88 when I was driving. That was a long time ago, but
Yeah.
wow.
Well, there was no penalty for not having
No,
insurance.
there was no penalty. That's maybe what it
now
was.
there is a
It's a real
requirement.
stiff penalty too, right?
Yeah, well, it's not very great.
It's $10, but then
$10.
there's court fees that go
But you
with
need
it. So
you should have a identification in your car, right?
The requirements today are that you have an insurance card and your proof of registration in your vehicle.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Uh-oh. I
So
don't
both
have
of
any.
them should be in the glove box.
Proof of
at all
registration
times.
of your even though you have your sticker on your plate.
Yep.
The registration
Yeah,
is that
'cause that
slip
comes-
that you receive when the sticker comes.
I just threw that away. I don't. I've been. Well, yeah, see, I've been good. I haven't had a ticket since the '90s. All right. So, anyway, and is there other things that you wanted to mention I may have missed with municipal court?
Yeah, I could just interject one thing. Is sometimes we have issues with people not paying.
Okay.
And so the state legislator gave us the ability a few years ago to do what's called tax intercept. In other words, if they have some state money coming back to them as part of an income tax payment, we're probably third in the line of where some money can be attributed to us. So we, through the course of since the intercept is going, we've collected about $3,800 now. That's not a lot of when you think about it, because we have $136,000 that's outstanding now that owes us, and this has been building over the years. It gets more and more every year. But it is a way for us to get something, and occasionally we'll have somebody get stopped for a tail layout or something, and then they'll find out, oh my God, there's a warrant out for your arrest. And what's that warrant out from? From maybe underage drinking from 20 years ago, and this was truly what happened. Somebody had a ticket that they didn't pay 20 years ago, and now they're 38 years old, and they got stopped, and all of a sudden
Yikes.
there's a ticket they had to pay yet.
Wow.
So-
And they have to pay it. Huh?
They have to pay it.
I never heard of such a thing.
Or they're taken into custody, and they are
Really?
taken down to the county jail. And the county jail may be outside of Wood County, depending on where they're stopped.
It's true. You could.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the warrants can be effective throughout the state. So
Okay. So yeah, you don't want to.
they normally have a large incentive to do something about paying off that citation when they find out about it.
Can you pay the officer on spot?
No.
I don't think you can.
They have that.
They'd have to go to that courthouse
Okay.
and either
The jail, I think
jail.
they can do them in the jails, yes.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is be hauled there for something they did 30 years ago. You wouldn't even remember. But it happens. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and it did. And,
Wow.
it was kind of, the guy felt pretty embarrassed, but he said, yeah, I forgot about it and just kind of blew it off. Didn't think it was ever going to bother me, but
Yeah.
eventually. And I think at some point in time, we have a process where if those fines have not been paid, that we do put warrants out. And sometimes that gets people's attention, and sometimes the next day they come in with their wad of $100 bills or whatever it is to pay their fine off, and they're saying, "Oh, sorry. When can I get my license back?"
Right. Well, does that money go into the general budget, or how does that work?
It does. And prior to us having a municipal court, when we used circuit court, Grand Rapids proceeds of all the tickets that we would write for speeding from our officers would amount to about $12,000 a year. Now the court system is up to generate $63,000 a year, because we get a larger percentage of the fines that are, plus the court costs that are all then given to Grand Rapids. So in reality, when I first proposed re-established in the court, probably back in 2000, 2001. We looked at, and somebody said, well, you're never going to be able to do anything with it. I said, well, if we can generate enough money to be able to buy one new squad car a year, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
And basically, we're on we buy one squad car a year. Now the court system is doing that, plus the accessories on them, these Dodge Chargers and that, they're not getting any cheaper anymore. So
No, but the whole thing is it helps safety.
it helps support the officers. I mean,
Yeah, and it's safe for residents. If there's nobody out there patrolling, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah,
And where someone gets hurt or killed. And that's what it's all about. And that's why, you have to initiate you have to have a fine. Otherwise, if you let them go for nothing all the time, they'll just then anybody will just keep doing it, I suppose.
Well, we do have a very, very good police department. I think the Grand Rapids has been fortunate to have been served by some very community-minded law enforcement, I think is the best way of saying that. They understand the needs of the community, and I think respond appropriately to the needs, which is good.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to talk about, David, on what you do, municipal court, otherwise, first Wednesday, 5:30
That's correct.
at the Grand Rapids Town Hall.
That's correct.
Or you call it Town Hall, right?
Yes.
And it's right where you do the board meetings, right?
Yes.
And come right in there. Otherwise, they need to pay the ticket. They can do that during the day. Come right down there, and ladies or staff will help.
Yeah, they'll gladly take their money.
Okay, well, you have to do it, so not that you want to, but it's part of life. So, well, I want to thank you for coming. It's great information, things I didn't know about, especially having a registration in your
Proof of insurance.
proof of insurance in your glove box, or you can get a fine for that, $10. Huh? Yeah, it all adds
Plus
up.
court costs. And that's
Ooh,
court
that's probably
costs,
more money.
Yeah, a lot more money.
So
Oh.
and I think the officers, I get quite a few people who come in and either, well, I don't see the ones if they didn't have them in their car, because they'll give what's called a 5-day notice, and people come in and show, yes, I did have insurance, or I did have my registration, and then they will not issue a citation.
That's nice.
And then I do get people coming in who didn't go through the procedure but come in and show, yes, in fact, they either had the insurance or they got it when they got stopped. And we're not out to inconvenience people, and I really want to encourage people to have their cars properly insured and properly licensed. And I tell people that you don't think about it, but the most dangerous thing that most people do is drive an automobile. And you do it without any thought and not realizing just what dangers there are involved in it. And because of that, it's important that it be done as responsibly as possible, because you've got significant risk out there, and we see it, and mistakes happen, and that's understandable. But for people to be irresponsible and drive poorly is a different situation altogether.
That's right. Alrighty, well, we're about out of time here.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
This time
guys.
flies fast over here.
It does, and probably almost a half hour, but I want to thank you guys both for coming on my program, and we'll finish this segment out and get you back next month with another guest.
Yep, we're going to work on another guest. Not sure who yet, but
All right.
we look forward to doing this, because I hear from the community, and I see it by looking at the count on the number of times the show's been watched. A lot of people are watching it. So
Great. All right. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to probably call us or call Artie.
or if they got topics they want us to chat about, we'll be glad to
Glad to help. So.
glad to consider them.
Alrighty, I want to thank you guys again for watching us here in this segment of Making Connections. I'm Tom Loucks for Community Media.